The Galactic Council station hung in the darkness of space like a massive metal flower. Its petals were docking bays, and at its center sat a chamber where representatives from 40 different alien species gathered. Today, that chamber buzzed with panic. Commander stood at the center podium, his four arms gesturing wildly. His skin flickered between colors, showing his stress. "The void gates are failing," he announced. "Sector 9 is experiencing a cascade collapse. We have less than 4 days before 47 star systems are cut off from the rest of the galaxy." The chamber erupted. Delegates chittered, clicked, and hummed in their various languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up. Everyone understood what this meant. The void gates were ancient doorways through space. They connected every civilized world. Without them, ships would take years to travel between stars instead of hours. Billions of beings would be stranded. "What are your engineers doing?" demanded a representative from the Quinn Collective, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights. "Everything possible," replied, his voice heavy. "Our best minds have tried to repair the network. The Empire sent their top specialists. The Sovereignty deployed their most advanced technology. Nothing has worked. The gates were built by the ancients, a race that disappeared millions of years ago. We do not fully understand how they function." In the back of the chamber, Captain Ho listened quietly. He was human, and humans were new to this council. His people had only joined the galactic community 15 years ago. He stood with his small crew, all wearing the simple blue uniforms of Earth's exploration fleet. They had arrived that morning for a routine supply stop. Ho studied the holographic display floating above the podium. It showed Sector 9, with 47 stars marked in red. Lines connected them through the Void Gate network, but those lines were flickering, fading. The pattern looked familiar somehow, though he could not quite place it. Beside him, Wu squinted at her, downloading the technical readouts that the council had made public. She was the ship's engineer, small and quick, with grease permanently under her fingernails. Her fingers moved rapidly across the screen, absorbing information. "We should help," Ho said quietly. His pilot, Wu Jin, looked at him with surprise. Wu Jin was young and confident, always ready for a challenge. But even he seemed doubtful. "Captain, we are talking about technology that is millions of years old. Technology that the best engineers in the galaxy cannot fix." "We should still try," Ho insisted. Their medic, Haewon, nodded slowly. She was practical and calm, qualities that made her excellent in emergencies. "What do we have to lose by looking at the problem?" The fifth member of their crew, Sang-min, was already studying the alien symbols on the display. He was their language and culture specialist, fascinated by how different species communicated. "The captain is right," he said. "Perhaps fresh eyes will see something others missed." Ho stepped forward. The chamber was massive, designed for beings much larger than humans. He felt very small as he walked toward the center. "Commander," he called out. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of eyes turned toward the human. Skin shifted to a purple shade that the translation software labeled as confusion mixed with irritation. "Yes, human," said. "My crew, and I would like to help with the void gate problem." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the chamber exploded with noise. It was not angry noise exactly. It was the sound of beings trying not to laugh. Clicks became rapid. Hums turned into warbling sounds. Even skin flickered in a pattern that suggested amusement. "You wish to help," said slowly. "Human, your species still uses chemical rockets to reach orbit from your planet's surface. You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. They have studied gate technology for 15,000 years. What could you possibly contribute?" Ho kept his face calm. He had expected this reaction. "Let us examine the data. If we cannot help, you have lost nothing but a few hours of time. If we can help, you save 47 star systems." "This is absurd," muttered a delegate from somewhere in the crowd. Others murmured agreement. But the Quinn representative spoke up. The human makes a logical point. We have tried everything. What harm can it do to let them try? Her voice suggested she expected the humans to fail, but she was at least willing to let them embarrass themselves. Skin settled into a resigned gray color. Very well. You may access the diagnostic data. We will provide you with a workspace in the technical section, but do not interfere with the real engineers. Understood, Ho said. Thank you, Commander. The council session ended. Delegates filed out, many casting amused glances at the human crew. Ho heard one alien say to another, "Did you hear? The primitives think they can fix the void gates." Laughter followed. An assistant, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish with mechanical implants, guided the human crew through the station's corridors. They passed labs where alien scientists worked on incomprehensible projects. They passed observation decks showing the vast emptiness of space. Finally, they reached a small room with a basic computer terminal. "This is your workspace," the assistant said, its voice bubbling through a translator. "The diagnostic data is loaded. You have access to all public information about the gates. Call if you need anything." The assistant left quickly, as if embarrassed to be associated with the humans. Wu immediately sat down at the terminal. Data began flowing across multiple screens. Technical specifications, energy readings, quantum field measurements, historical maintenance logs. The information was overwhelming, written in formats designed for alien minds. "This is going to take a while," she said. The crew settled in. Wu Jin brought coffee from their ship. Haewon organized their small space. Sangmin started making notes about the written language used in the technical documents. Ho stood by the window, looking out at the stars. 2 hours passed. Wu barely moved, her eyes scanning page after page of data. She made notes on an old-fashioned paper notebook, drawing diagrams, writing equations, crossing things out and starting over. The others waited patiently. They trusted her completely. Finally, Wu leaned back in her chair. She rubbed her eyes and looked at her crew. On her face was an expression they all recognized. It was the look she got when she understood something that others had missed. "Well?" Ho asked. Wu smiled. It was a small smile, tired but confident. She tapped her notebook with her pencil. "I think we've got this," she said. Those 5 words hung in the air. Wu Jin straightened up. Haewon's eyes widened. Sangmin stopped writing and looked at the engineer with surprise and hope. Ho felt something stir in his chest. It was a feeling he knew well. It was the feeling he got when his crew was about to do something impossible. "Show me," he said. Wu turned her notebook around. On the paper were sketches, rough and hand-drawn but clear in their meaning. "The other engineers have been thinking about this all wrong," she began, "and I think I know why." The next morning, a tall crystalline being named Eth arrived at the human workspace. He was the council's chief engineer, one of the most respected technical minds in the galaxy. His body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. He had spent 30 years studying void gate technology. "I will escort you to the maintenance facility," Eth said. His voice came through a translator, sounding like wind chimes. "The commander has authorized your access, though I personally believe this is a waste of time." Ho ignored the insult. "We appreciate your help, Engineer Eth." The maintenance facility was enormous. It sat on the outer ring of the station, with direct views of the nearest void gate. The gate itself was a circular structure 3 kilometers wide, floating in space. Its surface was covered in symbols from the ancient race. Energy rippled across it like water. Inside the facility, dozens of alien engineers worked at various stations. They glanced at the humans with curiosity and amusement. Some whispered to each other. Ho heard one say, "The apes have come to help." More laughter. Eth showed them to an observation area. "Here is the data access point. You may observe our work. Do not touch anything important." Wu immediately went to work. But she did not use the advanced holographic computers that filled the room. Instead, she took out her paper notebook and pencil. She began sketching again, drawing the gate's structure, making notes in the margins, calculating by hand. The alien engineers watched with confusion. One of them approached Eth. "Sir, why is the human using such primitive tools? We have quantum computers available." Eth's crystal body flickered, showing his own puzzlement. "I do not know. Perhaps they do not understand our technology." But Ho understood what Wu was doing. She always thought better with paper and pencil. The physical act of drawing helped her see patterns that screens could not show. He had learned to trust her methods, no matter how strange they seemed. Wu Jin, meanwhile, made an unusual request. "I need to fly close to the gate," he told Eth. "Can you provide a shuttle?" "Fly close to the gate?" Eth's crystals chimed in surprise. "Why would you do that? All necessary measurements can be taken from here." "I need to feel how it moves," Wu Jin explained. "The quantum spatial distortion field does not move in any way your biological senses can detect," Eth said, speaking slowly as if to a child. "This makes no sense." "Please," Ho intervened, "trust us, we have our methods." Eth finally agreed, though he clearly thought the humans were foolish. A small maintenance shuttle was prepared. Wu Jin climbed into the pilot's seat, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. The shuttle launched from the station and approached the gate. Wu Jin flew in slow circles around the massive structure. He ignored most of the instrument readings. Instead, he paid attention to how the shuttle responded. He felt the small tugs and pushes from the gate's distortion field. He noticed how the ship vibrated at certain distances. He was reading the gate through his hands and his instincts. Back in the facility, Sangmin made his own strange request. "I would like to see the original ancient texts about the gates," he told Eth. "Not your translations, the actual symbols." "The original symbols are not translated because we do not fully understand them," Eth explained. "They are kept in the archive. What use are they to you?" "I study how beings communicate," Sangmin said. "Sometimes the original language contains information that translations miss." Eth was skeptical but granted access. Sangmin received a loaded with images of ancient symbols. These symbols were carved into the foundation of every void gate. They had been photographed and studied for thousands of years. Sangmin sat cross-legged on the floor, comparing the symbols to examples from human languages, mathematics, even music notation. Haewon, the medic, seemed out of place in this technical environment, but she found her own way to contribute. She requested medical records of the engineers who had tried to fix the gates. At first, Eth refused, citing privacy concerns, but Haewon explained, "Mental stress affects problem-solving ability. I want to understand if the work itself is causing issues." Reluctantly, Eth provided anonymized medical data. Haewon studied the records carefully. What she found surprised her. Every engineer who had worked on the gate problem showed the same pattern of neural fatigue. It did not matter if they were Quinn or any other species. They all experienced identical mental exhaustion in the same brain regions. "They are all thinking about the problem the same way," Haewon said to Ho. "Different species, but identical mental approaches. That might be why they are all failing." 2 days passed. The human crew worked in their unusual ways while the alien engineers continued their conventional methods. The aliens grew increasingly frustrated. Their attempts to repair the gates failed one after another. The cascade collapse was spreading. Time was running out. On the third morning, Ho called a meeting. He invited Eth and the other senior engineers. They gathered in a conference room overlooking the gate. The aliens expected to hear an admission of defeat. They expected the humans to apologize and leave. Instead, Wu stood and activated the holographic display. She projected her hand-drawn sketches for everyone to see. The sketches looked crude compared to the alien technical diagrams, but there was something about them that caught everyone's attention. "You have all been treating the void gates like machines," Wu began. "You analyze them as if they are engines or computers. You look for broken parts to replace. You search for failed circuits to repair." "That is the correct approach," one of the engineers interrupted. "They are machines. What else would they be?" "They are instruments," Wu said simply. The room fell completely silent. Every being stared at her. Wu continued, "My colleague Sangmin made a discovery." She nodded to him. Sangmin stood, pulling up images of the ancient symbols. "The language of the ancients is not purely mathematical," he explained. "Their symbols contain patterns that suggest rhythm and harmony. Look here." He pointed to a sequence of symbols. "This pattern repeats like a musical phrase, and here, this is almost like a time signature in earth music." "The ancients did not build these gates with cold logic alone," Sangmin continued. "They built them with an understanding of harmony and resonance, not just physical resonance, but something deeper." Wu Jin spoke next. "When I flew around the gate, I felt it. The distortion field does not just exist, it pulses, it has a rhythm. Right now, that rhythm is irregular. The gates are not broken, they are out of tune." The alien engineers looked at each other in shock. Eth's crystal body flickered rapidly, showing his confusion and growing excitement. Wu brought up more diagrams. "Machines have parts that break and need replacement, but instruments need calibration. They need adjustment. They need someone to understand the relationships between all the components and how they create harmony together." "Think of it like an orchestra," Ho added, though he knew most aliens would not understand the reference. "If one instrument plays the wrong note, you do not throw it away. You tune it. You help it find its place in the harmony." Eth was silent for a long moment. His 30 years of study, his entire understanding of gate technology, was being challenged by these newcomers. But he was a true scientist. He looked at the evidence with an open mind. "This perspective," he said slowly, "has never been considered. We have always approached the gates as technological artifacts, not as works of art." "Can you fix them?" asked one of the other engineers, skepticism still in her voice. Ho looked at his crew. They looked back at him with confidence. Then he turned to the aliens. "Yes," he said, "we can fix them, but we will need to do it our way." The council gave the human crew full access to the failing Void Gate network. They had no other choice. Every conventional method had failed, and the Cascade collapse was now entering its final phase. In 72 hours, the damage would become permanent. 47 star systems would be isolated forever. The human crew moved into an active workspace near the maintenance bay. It quickly became clear that their approach would be nothing like what the aliens expected. There was no formal plan, no detailed engineering timeline. Instead, the humans seemed to operate on instinct and constant communication. Wu began building a device she called a harmonic calibration tool. The alien engineers gathered to watch, expecting to see advanced human technology. What they saw instead shocked them. Wu was making the tool from spare parts. She took scanning equipment from a broken sensor array. She salvaged magnetic coils from an old power generator. She welded pieces together in her small workspace, working mostly by hand. "This is your solution?" one engineer asked with disbelief. "Scrap metal and improvisation." "We do not need perfect," Wu replied without looking up from her work. Sparks flew as she welded two pieces together. "We need functional. This will work." Eth watched everything with fascination. He had spent decades using the most advanced tools in the galaxy. Watching Wu work with such basic equipment should have seemed primitive. Instead, it seemed somehow right. She understood what she was building in a way that went beyond specifications and blueprints. Wu Jin spent his time flying dangerous runs close to each failing gate in the sector. His shuttle came within meters of the massive structures, much closer than safety regulations allowed. Other pilots watched his flight patterns and shook their heads. He seemed to be taking unnecessary risks. But Wu Jin was not being reckless. He was mapping the gates in a way that instruments alone could not. He felt every vibration through his ship's hull. He sensed every fluctuation in the distortion field. When he returned from each run, he gave Wu detailed reports that sounded more like art than science. Gate 17 has a sharp pull on the lower left quadrant, he would say. Like a hook. Gate 23 feels smooth but sad, if that makes sense. It is waiting for something. Somehow, Wu understood exactly what he meant. She adjusted her calibration tool based on his descriptions. Sangmin worked on what he called the stabilization sequence. He analyzed the communication protocols that the gates used to talk to each other. The alien engineers had always treated these protocols as simple data transfers. Sangmin saw something different. He saw rhythm and pattern. He spent hours composing a signal sequence that looked more like music than computer code. The alien engineers could not understand his work at all. One of them complained to Ev, "The human is writing poetry to machines. This is nonsense." But Ev defended Sangmin, "Let him work. Their approach has merit, even if we do not yet understand it." Haewon's role became crucial as the work progressed. After 40 hours of continuous work, Wu collapsed at her workbench. She simply stopped moving, her body shutting down from exhaustion. The alien engineers were alarmed. They expected the humans to continue working like machines. Haewon immediately took charge. She checked Wu's vital signs and declared, "She needs rest, 6 hours minimum." "We do not have time for rest," one alien protested. "The cascade failure continues." "And she will be useless if her brain stops working," Haewon replied firmly. She gave Wu an injection to help her sleep, then set up a cot in a quiet corner of the workspace. Then Haewon did something that surprised everyone. She created a schedule, not a work schedule but a rest schedule. She mandated breaks for the entire crew, 20 minutes every 3 hours, meals at regular intervals, sleep periods that could not be skipped. "Humans are not unlimited machines," she explained to the confused aliens. "We have limits, but if we manage those limits properly, we can perform at our peak when it matters most." The aliens grudgingly admitted that this approach had merit. They noticed that when the humans returned from their breaks, they often had new ideas and insights. The forced rest periods seemed to improve rather than hinder their work. Meanwhile, the work progressed in ways that seemed chaotic but were actually highly organized. When Wu encountered a problem with the calibration tool, she did not spend days running simulations. She tried a solution, tested it immediately, and adjusted based on results. If something did not work, she discarded it and tried something else without hesitation. Wu Jin adapted his flight patterns constantly based on new data. Sangmin rewrote his stabilization sequence dozens of times, each version building on what he learned from the previous attempt. The humans never seemed stuck. They flowed from one approach to another with remarkable flexibility. Ho coordinated everything with quiet efficiency. He did not micromanage his crew. He trusted them completely and gave them freedom to work however they needed. When council members came demanding progress reports, he dealt with them alone. He shielded his team from the pressure and politics. "How much longer?" Commander asked during one visit. His skin showed colors of stress and fear. "We are on schedule," Ho replied calmly. "What schedule? You have no formal timeline." "We have a schedule," Ho said. "You just cannot see it on a chart." 60 hours into the crisis, Wu declared her calibration tool ready. It looked nothing like a sophisticated piece of equipment. It was a collection of mismatched components held together with welds and improvised brackets. But when Wu activated it, the readings were perfect. "We are ready for the first test," she announced. Every engineer in the facility gathered to watch. The test would be performed on the primary gate in Sector 9, the one closest to the station. If this worked, they would know the approach was valid. If it failed, there would be no time for another attempt. Wu positioned her device near the gate's control interface. Wu Jin maneuvered his shuttle into position to monitor the distortion field. Sangmin prepared to transmit the stabilization sequence. Haewon stood by with medical equipment, ready for anything. Ho gave the order, begin. Wu activated the harmonic calibration tool. Energy flowed from the device into the gate's systems. The gate's quantum field began fluctuating wildly. Warning alarms sounded throughout the facility. Several alien engineers shouted in panic. "The field is becoming unstable," someone yelled. "Shut it down," another demanded. But Wu kept working, her hands steady on the controls. She was watching readings that only she understood, adjusting the harmonic frequency in real time. The gate's fluctuations grew more intense. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like the entire structure might collapse. Then something changed. The wild fluctuations began settling into a pattern. The randomness became rhythm. Like an orchestra finding its pitch, the gate's quantum field started stabilizing. The alarm stopped. The readings normalized. The gate's energy output settled into a smooth, steady pulse. In his shuttle, Wu Jin watched the distortion field with wide eyes. "It is working," he whispered into his communicator. "The gate is responding. I can feel it finding its balance." Sangmin transmitted the stabilization sequence. The gate accepted the signal and incorporated it into its operational pattern. The cascade failure that had been spreading from this gate suddenly stopped. Then it began revering. The maintenance facility fell silent. Every being stared at the displays in disbelief. The primary gate was not just stable, it was functioning better than it had in years. Eth approached the holographic display, his crystal body glowing bright with excitement. He checked the readings 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. Finally, he turned to the human crew. "By the ancient stars," he said softly, "you actually did it. It is working." Wu allowed herself a small smile. She was exhausted, running on stimulants and sheer determination, but satisfaction showed in her eyes. "1 gate down," she said. 46 to go. 12 hours remained before the cascade failure would become permanent. The human crew had successfully stabilized 1 gate, proving their approach worked. But now they faced an impossible challenge. They needed to stabilize 46 gates simultaneously. The alien engineers ran the calculations immediately. Even with the proven method, stabilizing each gate took approximately 2 hours. Working sequentially, they would need 92 hours. They had 12. "We must begin evacuations," one of the council members declared. "We cannot save all 47 systems. Perhaps we can save some of the population." But Ho shook his head. He stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every gate in Sector 9. Each display pulsed red, showing the deteriorating systems. His crew stood with him, all of them exhausted. Wu Jin had dark circles under his eyes. Wu's hands trembled from fatigue and stimulant injections. Sangmin's voice was hoarse. Even Haewon looked worn out from managing everyone's health. "We are not giving up," Ho said quietly. "Captain," Eth said gently, the crystalline engineer had developed respect for these humans. "You have done more than anyone thought possible, but the mathematics are clear. There is not enough time." "Then we change the mathematics," Ho replied. He looked at his crew. "We need a new plan." They gathered in their small workspace aboard the Steadfast, their ship. The common room was cramped, designed for a crew of 5. Right now it felt even smaller with the weight of their impossible task pressing down on them. They sat around the small table, coffee cups in hand, staring at each other. "Talk to me," Ho said. 46 gates, 12 hours, what are we missing?" Wu spoke first. "We cannot calibrate them individually, but what if we do not have to? What if we can calibrate them all at once?" "How?" Wu Jin asked. "Your device can only connect to 1 gate at a time." What if we do not use the device directly? Wu said, thinking out loud. What if we broadcast the calibration signal, use the ship's communication array to reach all gates simultaneously? Sangmin sat up straight. That could work. My stabilization sequence is already designed as a signal. If we amplify it through the ship's array, it could reach every gate in the sector. The power requirements would be enormous, Wu said, already calculating in her head. We would need to push every system beyond safety limits. The communication array was not designed for this kind of power output. Can the ship handle it? Ho asked. Wu was quiet for a moment. She knew the Steadfast better than anyone. She had maintained every system, repaired every component. She knew exactly what the ship could and could not do. What Ho was asking would push the ship past its breaking point. The ship can take it, she finally said. But I cannot guarantee what state we will be in afterward. The communication array might burn out. The power core could overload. We might not survive. The room fell silent. They all understood what this meant. This was not just a risky repair job anymore. This was a potential suicide mission. Wu Jin spoke next, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. I can hold us stable during transmission. The spatial distortions will be intense, but I have flown through worse. He had not actually flown through worse, but he said it with such confidence that everyone believed him. The sequence is ready, Sangmin confirmed. I have triple-checked the harmonics. It will work if we can transmit it. Haewon nodded. And I will keep all of you conscious and functional through the attempt. I have stimulants prepared. They are not approved for this level of use, but they will work. All eyes turned to Ho. This was his decision. He could tell his crew to stand down. They had already done enough. Nobody would blame them for admitting defeat. The galaxy's best engineers had failed. These 5 humans had gone further than anyone expected. But Ho looked at each member of his crew and saw the same determination he felt. They had not come this far to quit. They had not said, we've got this, just to give up when things got difficult. Then let's show them what humans mean when we say those words, Ho said. Let's finish this. They presented their plan to the council. The reaction was immediate and loud. Commander's skin flashed through a dozen colors, all of them showing alarm. You will destroy your ship, he said. You will likely die in the attempt. Maybe, Ho admitted. But if we do not try, the outcome is certain. 46 systems lost forever. Eth stepped forward. Captain Ho, you have already proven your worth. You do not need to sacrifice yourselves. We can begin evacuations. We can save some of the population. Some is not enough, Ho replied. Not when we can try to save all. This is insane, another council member protested. The risk is too great. The risk is ours to take, Ho said firmly. The council argued for another hour, but ultimately they had no authority to stop the humans. The Steadfast was Earth's ship. The crew volunteered freely, and the galaxy had run out of options. The Steadfast moved into position at the center of Sector 9. Every other ship in the area evacuated to safe distance. The human crew made their final preparations. Wu rerouted power systems, bypassing every safety protocol. She was preparing the ship to operate at levels it was never designed for. Wu Jin ran through his flight check 3 times, making sure every maneuvering thruster responded perfectly. They would need absolute precision to maintain position. Sangmin loaded his stabilization sequence into the communication system, checking and rechecking every line of code. Haewon prepared her medical station. She laid out injections in neat rows, stimulants, pain suppressors, emergency medications. She hoped she would not need most of them, but she was ready. Ho sat in the captain's chair looking at his crew. They were tired, scared, and determined. They were the best people he had ever known. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I am proud to serve with you. We've got this, Captain, Wu said with a smile. We've got this, the others echoed. The count began. At Ho's signal, everything happened at once. Wu opened the power flow to maximum. The fusion core jumped to 140% output. Warning lights lit up across every console. The ship's computer began screaming alerts in multiple languages. Sang-min initiated the transmission. Through the overloaded communication array, the stabilization sequence pulsed outward. It was not just electromagnetic radiation. It was a fundamental frequency that resonated with the exotic matter at the heart of every void gate. The first gate responded, then 5 more, then 20. The cascade reversal spread like wildfire. But the steadfast was paying the price. Hull plates buckled under the stress. Conduits ruptured, spraying coolant into corridors. The communication array was literally melting from the energy flow. In the engine room, alarms shrieked as systems failed one after another. Hull integrity at 60%, Wu shouted over the noise. "We need 30 more seconds," Sang-min called back, watching the gate responses. "The array will not last 20, Wu replied, her hands flying across the controls, desperately trying to keep power flowing. Haewon moved through the ship with practiced efficiency. She injected each crew member with her prepared stimulants. The drugs were dangerous at these doses, but they kept everyone conscious and sharp despite the chaos. In the pilot seat, Woo Jin fought to maintain position. The spatial distortions from 46 gates responding simultaneously created forces that tried to tear the ship apart. His hands moved with impossible speed, making micro-adjustments constantly. 20 seconds passed. The ship was dying, 30 gates stabilized, 35, 40. "Come on," Ho whispered, gripping his chair. 43, 45, 46. And then, with 5 seconds remaining before the communication array exploded, the 47th gate stabilized. The sequence was complete. The cascade failure stopped. Sang-min cut the transmission. Wu shut down the power flow. The sudden silence felt deafening after the chaos. The steadfast drifted in space. Smoke poured from ruptured systems. Half the lights were out. The communication array was a melted ruin, but the ship's hull held, and inside 5 humans sat in shocked silence, breathing hard, unable to believe they had survived. "Status," Ho managed to say. "All gates stable," Sang-min reported, his voice shaking. "The network is secure." "We are alive," Haewon added, sounding surprised. Woo Jin started laughing. It was the slightly hysterical laugh of someone who just survived something impossible. Soon the others joined in. They had done it. Against all logic, against all probability, they had saved 47 star systems. They had said, "We've got this." And they had meant it. The rescue ships arrived within minutes. They had been waiting at safe distance, expecting to recover debris or, if lucky, survivors. Instead, they found the Steadfast intact but heavily damaged. Smoke streamed from ruptured sections. The communication array was destroyed, but the ship's emergency beacon was strong, and life signs showed all 5 crew members alive. Medical teams extracted the human crew carefully. Ho had a concussion from when the ship's gravity briefly failed. Wu suffered minor radiation exposure from the overloaded power core. Woo Jin had fractured his wrist from gripping the controls too hard during the stabilization. Sang-min's ears were bleeding from the sound of failing systems. Haewon was the least injured, though she was exhausted from keeping everyone else alive. They were taken to the medical facilities on the council station. Alien doctors swarmed around them, fascinated by human biology and eager to ensure these remarkable beings survived. The humans were placed in a recovery ward together. Even injured and exhausted, they refused to be separated. "Did it work?" Ho asked the doctors as they treated his head injury. He had been unconscious during the final moments. A Quinn doctor, her crystalline form reflecting the medical lights, nodded enthusiastically. "All 47 gates are stable and functioning. The cascade failure is completely reversed. You saved billions of lives." The human crew exchanged glances. They had known the stakes, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. They had actually done it. News of their success spread through the galaxy at the speed of light through the now-functioning Void Gate network. Within hours, every civilized system knew what had happened. 5 humans from Earth, the and least advanced species in the galactic community, had solved a problem that had defeated the galaxy's greatest minds. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 2 days later. By then, the human crew had recovered enough to attend. They sat in a special viewing area, watching as representatives from 40 different species debated. Commander stood at the central podium. His skin was a color the translation software labeled as profound respect. "Members of the Council," he began, "we must address what has occurred. The humans accomplished what should have been impossible." "It defies explanation," said the representative. "We ran simulations. Every model predicted failure, yet they succeeded." Eth stepped forward to speak. The chief engineer's crystal body glowed bright with excitement. "I have spent the past 2 days analyzing their approach. I believe I understand what happened, or at least I am beginning to." He activated a holographic display showing the human crew's work process. "Watch how they operate. When they encounter a problem, they do not spend days in analysis. They test, adjust, and try again immediately. When one approach fails, they change tactics without hesitation. They adapt faster than any species I have studied." "But it is more than that," Eth continued. "We alien species have advanced science over. We have refined our methods until they are perfect. But in doing so, we have become rigid. We follow established procedures. We rely on proven theories. We have forgotten how to think in truly new ways." "The humans are not bound by our conventions," he explained. "They see connections we cannot. They combine art and science in ways we have never considered. When we told them the gates were machines, they said no, they are instruments. That single shift in perspective made all the difference." The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Every delegate seemed to be talking at once. Finally, the council leader, an ancient being whose species name was unpronounceable in any human language, called for silence. "What Engineer Eth says is true," the council leader spoke, their voice deep and resonant. "We have witnessed something remarkable, not just technical skill but a different way of thinking about problems. We must learn from this." After hours of debate, the council voted unanimously. They established the Human Integration Initiative. Its purpose was not to teach humans the alien ways as originally planned. Instead, it would learn from human methods. Mixed crews were proposed, pairing human explorers with alien engineers. Technology exchange programs were expanded in both directions. Cultural exchange became a priority. Most significantly, the Council acknowledged that advancement was not just about technology and knowledge. Sometimes it was about perspective, creativity, and the courage to try new approaches. 5 days after the crisis ended, the human crew prepared to depart. The Steadfast had been repaired by the station's engineers, who worked on it with something close to reverence. They replaced the destroyed communication array. They repaired the damaged hull. They even upgraded several systems as a gift. The crew gathered in the docking bay for a small ceremony. To their surprise, hundreds of aliens had come to see them off. Engineers who had watched them work, pilots who had witnessed Wu Jin's flying, scientists who had studied their methods, even delegates from the council. Commander approached Ho. "Captain," he said, "I owe you an apology. When you first volunteered to help, I mocked you. I thought humans were too primitive to contribute. I was profoundly wrong." "You were not wrong to be skeptical," Ho replied. "We are the newcomers here. We have much to learn from the galaxy." "And the galaxy has much to learn from you," said. "Your species sees problems differently than we do. That perspective is valuable, perhaps invaluable." Eth presented Wu with a small crystal. "This contains all my research on Void Gate technology," he explained. 30 years of work. I give it to you because I believe you will use it in ways I never imagined." Wu accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. "I will study it carefully, and maybe next time we meet, we can work together from the start." "I would like that very much," Eth said. As the crew prepared to board their ship, Ho turned to address the crowd. He had not prepared a speech. He simply spoke from his heart. "We came here for supplies," he said. "We did not expect to stay. We certainly did not expect to save the galaxy. But when we saw the problem, we could not walk away. That is what humans do. We see someone who needs help and we help. We see something broken and we try to fix it. We see the impossible and we try anyway." He paused, looking at his crew. "My team told the council we've got this when everyone thought we would fail. They meant those words. When humans make that promise, we keep it." The docking bay erupted in sounds of approval. Clicks, hums, whistles, and various alien forms of applause filled the air. The crew of the Steadfast boarded their ship. Wu Jin took his place at the controls. Wu checked the new systems. Sangmin prepared navigation data. Haewon secured the medical bay. Ho settled into the captain's chair. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," they all replied. The Steadfast detached from the station and moved toward the nearest void gate. As they approached, Ho noticed something. The gate's surface, covered in ancient symbols, seemed to pulse with a different quality now. It looked more alive, more harmonious, like an instrument properly tuned. They passed through the gate, jumping across in an instant. Behind them, the council station grew smaller, but the impact of what they had done continued to spread. In the weeks and months that followed, the story of the Steadfast became legend. Young aliens training to be engineers studied the human approach. Established scientists reconsidered their rigid methodologies. The humans had not just saved the Void Gate network. They had reminded an entire galaxy of something important. Advanced technology and vast knowledge were valuable, but sometimes the most powerful tool was the willingness to see problems in a new way, to try the impossible, to adapt and improvise, to say we've got this and then prove it. Humanity had joined the galactic community as the least advanced species, but they had taught the galaxy something that all their advanced civilizations had forgotten. Progress was not just about what you knew, it was about how you thought. And when humans said they had something handled, the galaxy learned to believe them. Months later, on Earth, Ho received a message from the Galactic Council. They were establishing a new facility for studying ancient technology. They wanted humans to lead the team, not because humans had the most advanced tools or the deepest knowledge, but because humans knew how to look at ancient mysteries and see possibilities instead of limitations. Ho smiled as he read the message. He thought about his crew, now scattered on various assignments across human space. Wu was consulting on a new engine design. Wu Jin was training the next generation of pilots. Sangmin was working with alien linguists. Haewon was developing new medical protocols for deep space missions. They had been 5 humans on a routine supply stop. They had become the crew that saved the galaxy. And they had done it not by being the or the most advanced, but by being themselves. By being human. Ho composed his reply to the council. It was short, just 5 words. The same 5 words that had started everything. "We've got this." And somewhere in the vastness of space, the void gates pulsed with their perfect harmony, tuned by human hands, working better than they had in. A testament to what could be achieved when someone was brave enough to try the impossible. When someone was human enough to say, "We've got this," and mean it.